The sun had just begun its slow climb over the horizon of Kepler 72c, painting the sky in shades of pale green and soft lavender. The planet's forests were alive with faint whispers, leaves shimmering in colors humans had never seen on Earth. Birds or creatures that looked like birds flitted through the air in patterns that made the trees seem almost to dance. This was a world full of life, and yet, despite its beauty, it was strange and unfamiliar, especially for anyone who was not native to it. Among the dense forest paths, a small figure stumbled. It was a girl, or at least something like a girl, with luminous skin that reflected the faint light in streaks of soft pink and blue. Her eyes were wide, filled with both awe and confusion. She had come from far beyond this forest, but she had never expected the world to be quite so wild. She walked cautiously, her small feet stepping lightly on the soft moss that cushioned the forest floor. She did not have clothing like humans did. Her body was covered in a thin, bioluminescent membrane, delicate and fragile, which was not enough to protect her from the environment or the curious wildlife. At first, the creatures she encountered seemed harmless. Tiny, round things bounced out from behind the trees, hopping and chirping. They were no bigger than a loaf of bread, and their bodies glowed faintly with patterns that shifted constantly. She reached out a hand to touch one, but it darted away with a squeak that sounded almost like laughter. She smiled nervously, thinking perhaps the creatures were playful, but as she moved further, she realized that they were not alone. The forest seemed to have hundreds of these small beings, all curious and energetic. The creatures started to swarm her, nudging her and dropping small objects from the trees. At first it was harmless, twigs, leaves, and tiny stones, but soon fruit began to fall too. Some were soft, squishy, and harmless, but others were hard and bounced sharply on the ground. The girl shrank back, trying to dodge the small hailstorm of objects. She squealed softly, a sound of alarm rather than pain. She didn't understand why these creatures were behaving this way. On her planet, such creatures would have been scared of strangers, not so eager to throw things. From a distance, a group of humans observed her. They had been sent to explore this region, mapping the forest and testing the atmosphere for habitability. The humans were tall and broad, their suits glinting in the light, though some had begun removing helmets to take in the fresh, alien air. Among them was a young man named Aaron. He had sharp eyes and a steady calm, the kind of person who could see problems before they became disasters. When Aaron saw the alien girl being pelted by the creatures, his first instinct was worry. The objects were not truly dangerous, but the girl was clearly overwhelmed and unprepared. He could see her trying to move gracefully, but the forest's strange terrain and the creatures' unpredictability made it almost impossible. His heart went out to her, and without thinking too much, he stepped forward. The other humans hesitated. "Wait," one said, "we don't know if it's safe." But Aaron was already moving, carefully navigating through the forest toward the girl. Every step was cautious. The ground was uneven, roots and rocks hidden beneath the soft moss. The creatures noticed him immediately, their glowing bodies flickering like fireflies in sudden excitement. They began to swarm around him, but Aaron moved calmly, speaking in soft tones, more to comfort himself than them. The girl froze when she saw him. His appearance was different from hers in ways she could not describe. His skin did not glow. His eyes were dark and solid, not reflecting the light of the forest like hers did. He was larger, taller, and solid in ways she could not understand. For a moment, she wondered if he might be another creature wanting to harm her. She stepped back, lifting her hands to protect herself, but then she saw the soft expression on his face. There was no malice in his eyes, only concern. Aaron slowed and crouched, lowering himself to seem less threatening. He extended one hand slowly, open and empty, a universal sign of peace. "It's okay," he said softly, though she could not understand his words. He repeated the tone, a gentle hum, and made a small circular motion with his hand, indicating he wanted her to come closer. The creatures around her paused, sensing the calm energy of the human, though they did not retreat entirely. The girl hesitated. She wanted to trust him, but her instincts told her to be careful. She stepped slightly forward, curious about the soft warmth radiating from him, unlike anything she had felt in her own world. Her membrane flickered, small sparks of light running across her arms and legs as she drew nearer. Aaron noticed the flicker and smiled faintly, understanding that it was a sign of her nervousness. Then came the next wave of objects. A cluster of soft, round fruit bounced off her sides, leaving harmless splats that glowed faintly against her skin. She jumped back, startled, her luminescence flashing in rapid, beautiful patterns. Aaron quickly reached into his pack and pulled out something new, a coat he had been testing for the forest's unpredictable weather. It was adaptive, able to change its size and shape, and designed to provide protection in multiple climates. With careful movements, he held it open toward her. The coat shimmered faintly as it sensed the alien girl's proximity, expanding and reshaping to her size. The creatures paused, sensing the unfamiliar energy. The girl stared at the glowing garment, her mind racing. She had never seen anything like it. Hesitant, she reached out a hand and touched the soft fabric. It adjusted instantly, covering her fragile membrane without constraining her movements. The coat felt safe, warm, and solid, a protective barrier between her and the forest's unpredictability. For a moment, nothing happened. Then one of the creatures jumped toward her, but instead of hitting her, it bounced harmlessly off the coat and rolled on the ground in confusion. The girl gasped in surprise and relief. The coat moved with her, flowing and shifting as if alive, keeping her safe without hindering her movements. She looked at Aaron, her glowing eyes wide with gratitude. Though she could not speak his language, her luminescence pulsed in patterns that clearly showed relief and happiness. Aaron smiled back. "See, you're safe now," he said gently, though the words were meaningless to her. It did not matter. She could feel the intent behind them, the same way she could feel the gentle pulse of the coat against her skin. She took a step closer to him, then another, until she was standing fully within the protective embrace of the garment. The creatures, realizing that the girl was no longer a target, calmed. Some bounced around her in curiosity, sniffing the glowing coat, while others observed from a safe distance. She laughed softly, a sound like wind chimes, and the forest seemed to echo it back in gentle, musical tones. The humans watching from afar relaxed, seeing that the situation had shifted from potential danger to playful curiosity. Aaron gently motioned for the girl to follow him. Slowly, cautiously, she began walking alongside him. The coat adjusted with every step, making her movements smooth and confident. She began to experiment, stretching her arms, spinning, and even trying small jumps, each time landing safely as the coat absorbed the minor impacts. The creatures watched in awe, their playful energy slowly turning into admiration for the strange, glowing girl and the human who had protected her. As they moved through the forest, Aaron pointed toward a clearing where other humans were setting up a temporary camp. The girl's luminescence brightened as she saw more of her own kind, but none of them approached her. She realized she had been entirely alone, lost in a world far from home. But now, with the human's coat shielding her, she felt a sense of belonging she had never known. By the time they reached the edge of the clearing, the sun was fully above the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape. The humans at the camp were curious and cautious, watching the pair approach. The girl paused, glancing back at the forest and the playful creatures, then at Aaron, understanding somehow that this human had saved her from fear and confusion. She could not speak, but she could communicate in small pulses of light, a language of emotion and trust that the humans could sense even without understanding the details. Aaron knelt and opened his arms slightly. The girl stepped into the embrace of the coat, and for the first time in hours, she felt completely safe. The forest behind her was alive with energy, but it no longer threatened her. Ahead, the humans were ready to welcome her, but more importantly, she had found a friend in this human who had understood her need without a single word. The forest seemed to quiet around them, as if acknowledging the new bond between species. Aaron led her into the camp, and though the humans were still cautious, they could see the girl was unharmed and calm. Her membrane shimmered beneath the coat, a soft, radiant glow that reflected the morning light. She looked at Aaron, and though no words were exchanged, a connection had formed. A connection that promised new understanding, new stories, and new adventures to come. The girl stepped fully into the camp, still covered by the human's coat, and the creatures in the forest slowly dispersed. For the first time on Kepler 72c, a human and an alien were not just observing each other. They were learning to trust, to care, and to protect. The day had only just begun, and yet already something extraordinary had started. The morning sun had fully risen, spilling pale green light across the human camp. The small clearing was alive with the sounds of activity. Tents being pitched, equipment being unpacked, and quiet conversations in a language the alien girl did not understand. She stood at the edge of the camp, her bioluminescent skin glowing faintly beneath the protective coat that had saved her in the forest. The coat shimmered softly as she moved, adjusting to her body's shifts, making her feel secure yet free. Aaron walked beside her, guiding her gently toward a large tent at the center of the camp. Inside, humans were examining maps, calibrating devices, and talking about plans for the day. When they noticed the girl, a hush fell over the group. Some were curious, others cautious. She looked different from anything they had seen before, small, glowing, and utterly alien. Yet there was a calm about her now that made them hesitate before reacting. Aaron spoke softly to them, explaining in simple words what had happened. She's alone. The creatures in the forest were curious, not dangerous. She needs shelter, warmth, and understanding. The coat keeps her safe. His voice carried a quiet confidence that seemed to ease the tension among the others. The girl watched everything with wide, curious eyes. She had never seen so many of another species together in one place. Their movements, their speech, even their clothes, all of it was strange and fascinating. She took a careful step into the tent, letting the coat adjust to her as she moved. The humans observed respectfully, not pressing her to do anything she was not ready for. Inside the tent, Aaron gestured toward a small platform with soft padding. "You can rest here," he said. The girl hesitated for a moment, unsure what he meant, then stepped onto the platform. The coat expanded slightly, making her feel as if she were floating on a soft cloud. She sat down carefully, her glowing skin casting soft light on the walls of the tent. A young human named Lyra approached, holding a small device. She was in charge of analyzing local flora and fauna and had been observing the girl from a distance. "Hello," she said with a gentle smile, holding out her hand. The girl tilted her head, unsure how to respond. She lifted her own hand, and faint pulses of light ran along her fingers. Lyra watched closely and mirrored the gesture, touching her fingertips lightly to the alien girl's glowing ones. The lights reacted, pulsing in patterns that seemed like laughter, curiosity, and cautious friendship all at once. Outside the tent, the small creatures from the forest were still bouncing about. They seemed interested in the humans' camp but hesitant to approach directly. Aaron noticed this and led the girl to the edge of the clearing, where the creatures hovered at a safe distance. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small reflective device, a piece of human ingenuity designed to entertain and redirect attention. He waved it gently, catching the morning light and sending beams of shifting color into the forest. The creature's eyes followed the light. One by one, they approached it carefully, mesmerized by the shifting reflections. The girl's eyes lit up, and she laughed softly. Her laughter was musical, soft, and full of wonder. She reached toward the light with one hand, then another, moving in rhythm with the reflections. Aaron smiled, realizing that this was a perfect way to give her space while keeping the creatures entertained. As the morning passed, the humans continued their work, but they did so with awareness of the girl's presence. They moved carefully, avoiding sudden motions, speaking softly when necessary. She began to observe them, learning how they handled tools, how they coordinated tasks, and how they responded to one another. Each small discovery fascinated her. She noticed that humans used gestures alongside speech, pointing, nodding, or shaking their heads to communicate quickly. She began to mimic these gestures, discovering small ways to convey her own thoughts. Aaron watched her with quiet pride. He could see her intelligence, her curiosity, and her willingness to adapt. The coat had protected her body, but now he saw her beginning to adapt her mind. She was learning not just how to move in this environment, but how to understand the humans' ways, even without knowing their language fully. By mid-morning, the girl had begun to explore the camp more confidently. She touched the soft tents, examined the strange devices humans used to measure the air and soil, and even tried holding some of the tools in her delicate hands. The coat adjusted each time, expanding and contracting to support her movements. The humans were amazed at her dexterity and understanding. She was clearly intelligent, able to grasp concepts quickly and respond creatively to new situations. Aaron decided it was time to show her more of the camp. He led her toward a small water stream that ran through the clearing. The water shimmered in the morning light, clear and fresh. The girl bent down, dipping her hands into the stream. She laughed as the water splashed lightly against her skin. Aaron noticed that she seemed curious about the creatures again. He pointed to a small group drinking at the stream, and she nodded, understanding that these creatures were part of this ecosystem. She watched their behavior carefully, learning from them as she had from the humans. After a while, Aaron introduced her to a small table where the humans kept food samples for study. The alien girl looked at the various fruits and synthetic rations with wide eyes. She reached out to touch a soft, round fruit, and the coat adjusted, protecting her from any unfamiliar textures. She tasted it cautiously and smiled. The humans observed, noting her reactions. She seemed to enjoy the flavors, her luminescence pulsing softly with delight. The rest of the morning passed in similar fashion. The girl explored, learned, and adapted. She began to recognize patterns, which humans were safe to approach, how to avoid startling the creatures, and how to move confidently across the uneven forest floor. Aaron stayed close, guiding her when necessary but allowing her independence whenever possible. She seemed to understand that he was a friend and protector, and she responded with trust and openness. By noon, the camp had settled into a rhythm. Humans were working, the girl was exploring, and the creatures of the forest had become playful spectators rather than threats. Aaron took a moment to sit with her on a soft patch of grass near the stream. He showed her a small device that displayed shifting colors and shapes. The girl's eyes widened and she reached out to touch it. The colors responded to her movements, creating patterns that seemed like dancing lights. She laughed, the sound soft and musical, echoing gently through the clearing. Aaron smiled. "You're learning fast," he said, though she could not understand the words fully. It did not matter. She could feel the calm, encouraging energy in his voice. She responded with a soft glow, her luminescence brightening in patterns that conveyed happiness and understanding. Suddenly, one of the creatures approached too closely, curious about the device. The girl instinctively raised her hand and the coat expanded slightly, creating a protective barrier. The creature paused, observing, then cautiously retreated. The girl laughed, and the humans watching were impressed. She had learned to use the coat not just for protection, but as a tool for interacting with her environment. As the afternoon approached, Aaron decided it was time to teach her some basic human gestures for communication. He showed her how to point, nod, shake her head, and wave. She picked up the gestures quickly, mimicking them with grace and precision. Soon, she was able to respond to simple questions with gestures, even if she could not speak the words. The humans were amazed at her intelligence and adaptability. Lyra approached with a small device that could capture visual patterns of her luminescence. The girl allowed it, curious about how it worked. The device recorded the pulses and colors of her light, translating them into data the humans could analyze. The girl seemed fascinated, touching the device gently and watching the patterns appear. She was learning not just about the humans, but about herself and her own abilities. By late afternoon, the girl had become comfortable in the camp. She moved confidently, interacted with both humans and creatures, and even began experimenting with her coat, discovering small ways to use it to play, protect, and communicate. The humans were inspired by her adaptability and intelligence. They began to realize that she was not just an alien in need of help. She was a being who could teach them new ways of seeing, interacting, and understanding the world. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky in deeper shades of green and violet, Aaron led her back toward the central tent. The creatures in the forest had settled into the shadows, their glowing eyes observing the clearing from a distance. The girl looked back at them briefly, then at Aaron, and her luminescence pulsed softly, a pattern that conveyed gratitude, curiosity, and the bond that had begun to form. Inside the tent, the humans prepared a simple meal. The girl watched carefully, mimicking their actions when they offered her food. She had learned quickly, adapting to the humans' ways while still remaining distinctly herself. The coat shimmered softly as she moved, a reminder of the protection and friendship that had brought her to this place. As night fell, the forest came alive with glowing lights and soft whispers. The alien girl sat beside Aaron, watching the stars emerge in the alien sky. Though she could not speak the humans' language, she felt a deep connection with them, a sense of trust, friendship, and shared curiosity that transcended words. The camp was no longer a strange, intimidating place. It was becoming a home, a place of learning, laughter, and discovery. Aaron smiled down at her. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we explore more. You'll see how we live, how we work together, and how we can learn from each other." The girl's luminescence brightened in response, a silent promise that she was ready for whatever adventures lay ahead. The forest outside whispered, the creatures watching silently, and the stars above shone brighter than ever. In that moment, human and alien were not just two species sharing space. They were partners in understanding, discovery, and the beginning of a friendship that promised to change both their worlds. The next morning, the forest of Kepler 72c shimmered with the soft light of dawn. Each leaf and blade of grass glowing faintly, as if the planet itself were breathing. The alien girl woke slowly on the soft mat inside the tent, her coat still warm and comforting from the previous day. She stretched her arms carefully, feeling the coat's gentle embrace as it adjusted to every movement. Her glowing skin flickered softly, a sign of excitement and curiosity. Today would be different. Today, she would explore beyond the clearing. Aaron was already awake, kneeling near the entrance of the tent, checking a small device that measured atmospheric conditions. He noticed her movement and smiled. "Good morning," he said, though the girl could not understand the words. The tone was friendly, soft, and inviting. She responded with a small pulse of light, brighter than usual, letting him know she was ready for the day. After a simple breakfast of synthesized fruit and water, Aaron gestured for the girl to follow him outside. The creatures from the forest were already awake, bouncing gently among the trees, their glowing eyes watching carefully. The girl hesitated at first but then stepped forward confidently. Her coat expanded slightly to protect her as she walked, sensing every branch and root. The camp had already begun its daily work. Humans moved with purpose, testing soil, checking equipment, and documenting flora and fauna. The girl watched, fascinated. She had learned quickly how the humans worked together, and now she wanted to try. Aaron led her to a small device designed to measure soil quality. It looked complicated, with many buttons, lights, and moving parts, but the girl examined it with careful attention. Her fingers brushed against the controls, and the coat sensed her movements, adjusting to prevent any slips. She pressed a button and the device hummed softly, lights blinking. Aaron's eyes lit up. "Good," he said, though again, the words were meaningless to her. The tone, the smile, and the encouragement were enough. She repeated the process, moving deliberately and learning quickly how each button affected the readings. By the time morning had passed, she was operating the device almost as well as Aaron himself. The humans watched in awe. Their initial concern about her safety had shifted to admiration. She was intelligent, quick to understand, and most importantly, adaptable. Every mistake she made became a learning opportunity, every success a moment of pride. Aaron noticed how naturally she absorbed information, and he realized that her mind, like her body, was designed to adapt to new environments. After a while, Aaron suggested they explore beyond the camp. He led her through a narrow path in the forest, showing her strange plants that glowed faintly and small creatures that scurried quickly across the mossy ground. The girl's eyes sparkled as she observed everything carefully. She bent down to examine a luminous flower, touching it gently. Her coat protected her from the thorns hidden beneath the petals, and she laughed softly when the flower released a cloud of sparkling spores. The humans had never seen such a reaction, and they paused to watch, amazed at her curiosity and care. Further along, they came to a shallow stream, the water crystal clear and flowing quickly over smooth rocks. The girl knelt, dipping her hands in the water, and watched the way it flowed over her fingers. Aaron smiled, noting how she observed not just the surface but the patterns, the way light refracted, the movement of tiny creatures within. She was learning to see the world with both human and alien curiosity, blending observation with wonder. As they walked, they noticed unusual tracks along the forest floor. They were not from the small creatures they had seen earlier. Aaron knelt to examine them, tracing the shapes with his fingers. "These are new," he said softly. He looked at the girl, unsure if she would understand. She tilted her head, her glowing eyes flickering. Aaron decided to let her examine them herself. She crouched, studying the tracks carefully. Her glowing skin pulsed as she traced the patterns with a finger. She tapped her forehead lightly, a gesture Aaron had learned yesterday meant thinking or analyzing. Then she pointed toward the direction of the tracks. Aaron nodded, impressed. She had not just noticed the tracks, she had interpreted them and identified a path forward. They followed the trail for some distance, discovering more signs of life. Strange nests hung from trees, glowing softly, and unusual plants that seemed to hum with energy. The girl moved carefully, examining each new discovery. Her coat adjusted constantly, allowing her to reach and explore without fear. Aaron was amazed at her agility and careful attention. She was learning, adapting, and understanding faster than most humans could. At one point, the trail led to a small clearing where a cluster of plants emitted soft, rhythmic pulses of light. The girl approached them cautiously. She reached out, touching one gently, and the pulse intensified. She smiled, delighted by the interaction. Aaron observed closely, taking notes on the behavior of both the plants and the girl. She had a way of interacting with the environment that was subtle, intelligent, and graceful. It was clear she was not just exploring. She was communicating in a way unique to her species. The humans decided to take a break in the clearing. They shared water and simple food with the girl, who observed them carefully before trying any. She tasted the food cautiously, her luminescence pulsing in delight at the flavors. The humans laughed softly, enjoying her curiosity and the way she learned so quickly. Aaron offered her a small device that could project light patterns. She reached out, and the device responded to her touch, creating a dazzling display of colors. She moved her hands gracefully, and the lights danced in rhythm with her movements. The display caught the attention of the forest creatures. They approached cautiously, watching the interplay of light and movement. The girl laughed, reaching out to them. The creatures responded playfully, bouncing and circling as the lights shifted. Aaron smiled. Her presence and ingenuity had transformed a potentially chaotic environment into a scene of cooperation and wonder. She was teaching the humans as much as they were teaching her. After the break, they continued their exploration. The trail led them to a series of rock formations, strange and smooth, almost like giant sculptures created by nature. The girl climbed carefully, her coat expanding and contracting to support her movements. Aaron followed, offering guidance but letting her take the lead whenever possible. She paused at the top of a small hill, looking out over the forest. The view was breathtaking. The alien landscape stretched endlessly, with glowing trees, winding streams, and distant mountains that shimmered in the sunlight. She stood there for a moment, taking it all in. Her luminescence pulsed softly, reflecting her awe and excitement. Aaron joined her, pointing out various features of the landscape. He showed her distant creatures, patterns in the forest, and signs of life everywhere. She responded with gestures, pointing to areas that intrigued her, pulsing her light in patterns that conveyed questions and observations. Aaron nodded, realizing that this was a form of communication in itself. As they descended the hill, they noticed something unusual, a faint glow beneath a dense thicket. The girl approached cautiously, reaching through the branches. She found a small, bioluminescent plant growing among the roots. She touched it, and the glow intensified. Aaron examined it, taking careful notes. This plant was unlike any they had seen before. The girl had discovered it through observation and curiosity, not by following instructions or tools. Her natural instincts had guided her to something new and valuable. The humans were impressed. They had come to the forest to explore and study, but the alien girl had shown them a new way to observe, interpret, and interact with their environment. She had an intuitive understanding of patterns, a sense of curiosity that guided her discoveries, and the ability to adapt quickly. Aaron felt proud not just of her, but of the potential for humans and aliens to learn from each other. As the day wore on, they made their way back to the camp. The girl walked confidently, the coat shimmering softly with every step. The creatures of the forest followed at a distance, curious but respectful. She glanced back at the trees, then at Aaron, her luminescence pulsing in a pattern that seemed to say thank you. Aaron smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning of their shared adventures. Back at the camp, the girl explored the central area again, interacting with humans, tools, and creatures alike. She had learned quickly how to navigate this environment safely, how to communicate, and how to use the coat as both protection and a tool for exploration. The humans observed, fascinated by her intelligence, adaptability, and grace. As night fell, the forest came alive with glowing lights. The girl sat beside Aaron, watching the stars emerge in the alien sky. She pulsed softly, a rhythm of curiosity, trust, and contentment. Aaron reached out, placing a hand near hers. She responded with a gentle glow, and for a moment, words were unnecessary. They had learned from each other, explored together, and discovered that cooperation and understanding could transcend species. The day had been long and full of discovery. The alien girl had explored beyond the clearing, learned new skills, and shown humans new ways to observe and interact with their environment. She had not just survived, she had thrived. Aaron realized that her presence was changing the humans' perspective, teaching them patience, curiosity, and the value of careful observation. As the camp settled for the night, Aaron looked at the girl and smiled. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we will explore even further." There is so much more to see, and I think you are ready." The girl responded with a bright, pulsing glow, a silent promise that she was ready for whatever came next. The forest outside whispered, the creatures watching silently, and the stars above shone brighter than ever. In that moment, human and alien were not just sharing space. They were partners in discovery, curiosity, and the joy of learning together. The adventures had only begun, and both of them knew that the days ahead would bring new wonders, challenges, and moments that would change them forever. The next morning, the forest of Kepler 72c felt different. The soft glow of the trees seemed brighter, and a faint hum of energy ran through the air. The alien girl stretched, her coat adjusting automatically as she moved, and watched the forest with curiosity. Today, Aaron had promised, they would explore deeper than before, farther than any human had ventured into this part of the planet. She pulsed softly with excitement. Aaron approached her with a map-like device in his hands. "We are going to a new area," he said gently. She tilted her head, her glowing eyes following the device as he traced a path through the forest. The line moved over rivers, hills, and dense groves. She seemed to understand immediately that this was a journey into unknown terrain. She nodded slightly, her luminescence flickering in patterns that expressed both curiosity and determination. The journey began smoothly. The girl moved gracefully, the coat sensing every uneven root and stone, expanding and contracting to keep her safe. Aaron followed closely, keeping pace while observing her reactions to the forest. The small creatures that had accompanied them in previous days bounced along behind, their soft glow lighting the path ahead. After some time, they reached a wide clearing surrounded by trees with unusually thick roots. In the center of the clearing was a large plant structure, almost like a tower, made of intertwined vines that pulsed faintly. Aaron paused and pointed to the structure, then at the girl, indicating that they should investigate. She approached carefully, her coat shifting to protect her from any sharp edges or unexpected movements. As she examined the plant tower, she noticed something unusual. The base of the structure was tangled with roots that blocked access to the inner area. The plants pulsed more rapidly when she touched the vines, as if responding to her presence. Aaron knelt beside her, observing. He gestured for her to be careful, and she nodded, understanding that caution was important. The challenge became clear. If they wanted to explore the plant tower, they would need to find a way to separate the roots without harming the structure or themselves. The girl looked at Aaron, then at the roots, and began experimenting. She touched one root lightly and her coat shimmered, sensing the touch and adjusting support. The root pulsed, but did not resist violently. Encouraged, she tried gently moving another root aside, and the plant responded with a soft glow, opening a small gap. Aaron watched, amazed. She was solving the problem not by brute force but by observation, intuition, and subtle interaction. Humans often relied on tools, machines, or complex calculations, but she seemed to understand the forest itself, the energy within the plants, and the rhythm of the roots. With each small adjustment, the gap widened slowly, allowing a path through the tangled mass. As they worked together, the small creatures approached cautiously. They seemed curious about the interaction, their glowing bodies flickering in anticipation. The girl noticed them and began to include them in her process. She tapped lightly on the ground, signaling them to move small twigs or stones out of the way. The creatures responded eagerly, cooperating naturally with her. Aaron smiled, realizing that she was not just intelligent but also able to organize others, human or alien, in a subtle, effective way. After careful effort, they finally created a path into the plant tower. The girl stepped forward, her coat adjusting perfectly to every movement. Aaron followed, watching as she explored the interior. The tower was hollow, with a soft, glowing core at the center. Strange, pulsating filaments extended from the core, like threads of light running through the structure. The girl reached out, touching one filament lightly. The light pulsed in response, expanding along the network. Aaron observed closely. This plant tower was not just a structure, it was alive in a way humans had never seen. The girl's interaction with it revealed patterns, signals, and behaviors that machines alone could not detect. She moved gracefully, exploring carefully, while Aaron took notes, documenting her discoveries. The creatures watched silently, their glowing eyes reflecting the vibrant lights of the tower. Suddenly, a problem arose. One of the thicker roots at the base began to shift unexpectedly, closing part of the path they had created. The girl pulled back instinctively, her coat expanding to shield her from the sudden movement. Aaron quickly analyzed the situation. "We need to stabilize the root before it traps us," he said, though the words were again meaningless to her. The tone, the urgency, and his gestures conveyed the message clearly. The girl paused, then touched the root gently, her coat shimmering as it provided subtle pressure. She tested the root's reaction and discovered that pulsing it in rhythm with her own light caused it to relax. Aaron mimicked her pulse, moving in sync. Together, they created a rhythm that calmed the root, stabilizing the path. The creatures responded too, tapping the ground and nudging smaller debris aside, reinforcing the cooperation. With the root stabilized, they were free to explore deeper. The girl led the way, moving with confidence. Her luminescence pulsed in patterns that seemed to communicate with the tower itself. Aaron followed closely, taking careful notes. They discovered that the tower had chambers filled with bioluminescent spores, delicate and safe, but highly reactive to touch. The girl experimented with them carefully, creating patterns of light that danced through the chamber. The effect was mesmerizing, a natural display of beauty and intelligence. Aaron realized that this tower was a source of knowledge, not just a plant. The patterns of light, the responsiveness to touch, and the structure of the filaments suggested a form of communication or data storage within the forest. The girl had instinctively understood how to interact with it in a way humans could not have achieved alone. Her presence had unlocked information the humans might have missed entirely. As they explored further, the girl noticed a section of the tower that seemed more fragile. The filaments there glowed faintly, but any touch caused them to shift erratically. She paused, considering the best approach. Aaron nodded, understanding that she was assessing the risk. Instead of forcing the issue, she gently tapped the filaments in a careful pattern, watching the reaction. Slowly, she found a rhythm that allowed safe passage. This interaction took patience and creativity, qualities humans admired greatly. She demonstrated that intelligence was not always about speed or strength, but about observation, understanding, and subtle adjustment. Aaron took detailed notes, knowing that her approach would teach humans a new way to study alien ecosystems. After exploring the inner chambers, they emerged back into the clearing. The alien girl's luminescence pulsed softly, a rhythm of satisfaction and accomplishment. Aaron smiled at her. "We did it," he said gently. She responded with a bright pattern of light, clearly pleased with their teamwork. The creatures in the forest watched them leave the tower, their glowing bodies flickering in admiration. The girl reached out to touch them gently, signaling peace and friendliness. The creatures responded playfully, hopping and bouncing around her in celebration of the success. Aaron observed the interaction carefully, noting how natural cooperation could bridge species barriers without words or conflict. Back at the camp, the humans were eager to hear about the tower and the girl's discoveries. Though she could not speak their language, she used gestures, light patterns, and careful demonstrations to convey what they had seen. The humans followed her example, learning from her intuitive approach to problem solving. They realized that understanding could be as simple as observing, cooperating, and respecting the environment rather than imposing control. As evening approached, the group gathered near the stream for a simple meal. The girl sat beside Aaron, her coat shimmering softly as she ate. She had learned to adapt quickly to human routines, observing carefully, mimicking where necessary, and contributing her own insights. The humans admired her adaptability, intelligence, and grace. She had solved challenges, cooperated with creatures, and demonstrated an understanding of the forest that surpassed their own. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the clearing. The alien girl stood, her luminescence glowing brighter as she watched the forest. The creatures had settled nearby, observing her with curiosity and respect. Aaron approached and placed a hand near hers. She pulsed gently in response, a silent rhythm of gratitude and trust. That night, as the camp settled into quiet routines, Aaron reflected on the day's events. The girl had not only navigated the forest and the tower, but had also taught humans valuable lessons about observation, patience, and cooperation. Her intelligence, adaptability, and natural problem-solving abilities were remarkable. She had shown that humans, when willing to learn and cooperate, could bridge gaps with other species and discover knowledge in ways that would have been impossible alone. The alien girl lay down on her mat inside the tent, her coat adjusting automatically for comfort and warmth. She pulsed softly in the quiet night, thinking about the forest, the creatures, and the humans who had welcomed her. She realized that she had found a community, a place where her curiosity and intelligence were appreciated and where she could explore safely. Outside, the forest whispered in response, the creatures glowing faintly under the stars. Humans and aliens had worked together, solving a problem that neither could have completed alone. It was a quiet, peaceful victory, a testament to cooperation, intelligence, and mutual respect. As the stars shone above, the girl's luminescence pulsed in gentle patterns, signaling a deep sense of connection. Aaron sat nearby, watching the soft light dance across the tent walls. They had faced challenges, discovered wonders, and learned from each other. Tomorrow promised new adventures, new discoveries, and new opportunities to grow. Together, they had proven that understanding, intelligence, and cooperation could overcome even the most unfamiliar obstacles. The forest seemed to sigh in contentment, the creatures resting in safe spaces, and the camp quieted for the night. In that moment, human and alien were not just allies. They were partners in exploration, learning, and the pursuit of knowledge. Their journey was far from over, but the day's success had laid a foundation of trust, ingenuity, and hope for what lay ahead.